Hey, what's up you guys? Bloody Jacob here to bring you my review of Season 4 of Supernatural. I've reviewed the other 3 seasons, not too long ago, and I just finished Season 4 probably about 20 minutes ago. And I just wanted to, dive right into it. I'm just really, really happy with the show at this point. You guys know how highly I think of the show already after 3 seasons. You guys know how much I enjoyed the first 2 especially. Season 3 is still pretty good, but I felt like it was a little bit lesser than the previous 2. But Season 4 is amazing, man. It was probably my favorite season so far. It's hard to say because I always love that initial story with John and Azazel and stuff like that, and how that was sort of Season 1 and 2. It would be really hard to top that initial story for me, I think. But Season 4 just really took the series in a huge, new, and even bigger direction, I think. And it's really setting the bar high for where the show's going to go in the future, I think. And just some really big stuff has happened, and it's really on another level now. I absolutely love Supernatural. It's an amazing show. It's already going to rank among one of my favorites of all time for sure, no question about it. It was already pretty much there by the end of Season 1, Season 2, and now it's no damn question about it. But yeah, I love Season 4, and I'm probably going to be starting Season 5 tonight, so it's one hell of a show for sure. Pun intended. But yeah, I do have Season 4 on DVD here. I always love the covers to these things. Of course, with Dean coming back right there, and then you got Castiel in the background. Of course, the coloring effect on the cover. The inside of the case is a little more simplified than other seasons now, but I always love the cover to the Supernatural sets. Very cool. Awesome as fuck. And then, of course, you take that off, and then you get that. Season 12 of Supernatural is starting, pretty soon too, which is great. Okay, and yeah, let's get right into it, man. Like I said, Season 4, as much as I loved, Season 1 and 2, Season 4 just really took it in a huge direction going forward, completely topping anything it's done before, just in terms of scale of the story, like how much things are actually meaning now. And just the main threat that emerges at the end of Season 4, that was, it's been teased for a while now. It's really and truly something else. Like I said, I love Season 4, of course, with Dean literally being killed at the end of Season 3, by one of the Hellhounds. We start off by seeing him at, literally, rise from the dead here. So that was kind of cool to see him literally crawl out of his grave. And of course he scavenges for a while. It's almost like this deserty, post-apocalyptic setting when he first emerges in the premiere, the first episode. Then of course he hears a sound, and then we find a little bit more about how he was actually pulled from hell. And this of course ties into a major character we meet this season named Castiel. And I really like Castiel. Misha Collins does such a good job with it, and I really find his character to be very interesting and increasingly compelling as the season goes along. We find out that it was him who had pulled Dino out of hell, and Dean is supposedly pulled out for some greater purpose, to prevent something. And of course with Sam. With Dean gone for so long, it's been months now apparently. Sam's been spending even more time with Ruby, who is now in a different body. It was unfortunate that Katie Cassidy couldn't come back for Season 4, because I think she did a good job as Ruby in Season 3. But at the same time, it made sense with the way Season 3 ended. Of course, Ruby was had to get out of Katie Cassidy's body. So it makes sense that she would have to take another, it's just how it goes with demons. But I think the girl who played Ruby this season did a pretty good job. And, there is a twist with Ruby at the end of the season that really just flips it around. I could see how it could piss some people off that Ruby basically turns out to be against him the whole time, or Ruby is pretty much tied into Lucifer's plan. She is one of the very few who actually knew what the real plan was. And of course, the big focus to this season was, the seals, the breaking of the seals. So of course, with Sam and Dean trying to prevent that, and Lillith, on the prowl, trying to break however many of them there are. We hear that at one point there's like 60. We hear at one point there's like hundreds. So it's really unknown like how many there are. But that's like a big step for this season, trying to figure out what the seals are, where they are, and what they have to do to stop them and things like that. And once those seals are broken, Lucifer is released. And I'm especially eager to see Lucifer in season 5 because I know Mark Pellegrino is playing him. He's a really good actor who I know especially from Being Human as Bishop, one of my other favorite shows of all time. So I'm really eager to see him, but we'll talk about that once I see season 5. But yeah, that's a lot of the setup for season 4. And of course, with that, when Dean does come back, he goes to Bobby, and their scene together is of course very good. And I really like Bobby as well. Jim Beaver's done such a good job in the role so far, I think. And he's kind of taken over as sort of that like father figure, parental type of character in a way that the boys can look to. Not really quite on the same level as John to me, but it's a completely different dynamic, really. Very different story and such, but I think Bobby's definitely become a very good character, and I can see why he's a fan favorite. But yeah, let's get into the episodes. It's despite that huge angle going throughout the season, with that Castiel, you get Uriel, and you eventually see characters like, for some reason I'm forgetting his name right now. Give me a second. Let's see. Yeah, Zachariah. You see Zachariah. But I think Uriel has also played pretty well. I can't remember the actor's name now for some reason, but he's also been in shows like Burn Notice and such. He did a pretty good job, and like I said, I really like Castiel, and he's like more and more compelling as the season goes along, as you see like how his story and how he feels about certain things, and like the orders they supposedly get from these higher ups, whether it's God or not, we don't really know initially, or we don't know if God's just really abandoned it, or it has been like dealt with somehow and others have taken over. We don't really know. It's really interesting to see Castiel struggle with that, because he's been around for how many centuries being a soldier, and to go against all this, of course, is a very, very major weight. And I really do love all the Dean and the Castiel scenes this season. I think they have a really good dynamic, and I can see why Castiel is such a big character going forward, from this point onward. He's awesome. But yeah, so of course, I love all the episodes. It's it's hard to remember like all the specifics of everything, because you have your more case of the week stuff, and I have to think of all the details of the big story, the main story. But like I said, Lazarus Rising is a really good premiere. Dean wakes up from his own coughing. How did he return from the dead? What caused the hand-shaped welt on his shoulder? And what happened in the 4 months he spent in hell? He can't remember. But we just talked about the whole Castiel thing. And like I said, Sam was spending more time with Ruby during that time. And, we find out at the end of the season that, Ruby is essentially a setup to get Sam to free Lucifer, really. To be Lucifer's soldier, sort of as Azazel had wanted, in a way anyway. And Ruby doesn't fully see that herself as being wrong, because she thinks this will still give Sam something to sort of latch to, and Lucifer will be very grateful, and he'll get whatever he wants and stuff like that. But even before we found out that about Ruby, I still think she is a fairly interesting character. You never really knew fully to trust her, but I think she became like a pretty decent staple on the show, really, like a very different perspective and such. It was interesting to think about her possible motives and such, and we find out what those are at the end of the season. But again, she is still, interesting to watch while she was around, I think. Although, like I said, I did sort of prefer Katie Cassidy in the role, but, I sort of get the explanation that, depending on what's going on, they'd have to switch bodies and stuff like that. So, you know, it is what it is. But like I said, I liked Lucifer Rising. And then he had episode 2, Are You There, God? It's Me, Dean Winchester. And after Dean's encounter with Castiel, Dean, Sam, and Bobby brush up on their biblical lore. When they're attacked by the vengeful spirits of people from the Winchester's past, they're warned it's a sign that someone is trying to break seals, which will bring on the apocalypse. And I think we also seen the return of Meg in this episode, which is really cool to see that again. Because Meg, she was like one of our first major antagonists, back in season 1, so it was good to see that. And as well as the same actress, that of course helped for sure. And then episode 3, in the beginning, Back to the Future, Castiel sends Dean to 1973 Lawrence, Kansas, where he meets a nice young couple named John and Mary Winchester. Dean's parents, and Mary has a secret. And this is a really good episode. It surprised me quite a bit. That's the thing, I know Supernatural is such a fucking awesome show, but at the same time it can still impress me. That says a lot about it, I think. And this episode is an example of that, with Dean going back in time and sort of, seeing when John and Mary were first dating and such, sort of like how optimistic or like positive of a guy John was at that point. I think the guy who played the younger John did a pretty good job. No Jeffrey Dean Morgan, but he did a fine job with it, I think. And of course, they had to get a guy that looks younger and such, so it makes sense. And of course, we find out a lot more about Mary in this episode too. We find out that she and her family are actually a family of hunters, so that's really important information to think about. It makes you sort of rethink like how it actually played out at the beginning of the series. We see it's Hazel, yes, in another body, thus a different actor, but he's still very much creepy, old yellow eyes and such. So I really liked all that, and Sam having to, or Dean having to sort of deal with that, but at the same time not really being able to change much. Castiel had put Dean back there sort of just to make him aware of this information as well. So that, of course, is really good. Anytime they have that, parent dynamic introduced again, it's really good. Then he had episode 4, Metamorphosis, Dark Powers. Dean fears Sam is using his paranormal gifts in conflict with God's plan. And an ordinary guy in an ordinary town gets a major case of the munchies. It starts with steak and moves to human flesh. And I think this is a pretty good episode. It was, I think it was one of the more standout, sort of monster case of the week episodes we've gotten. Not that it was funny, but we'll talk more about the funny parts of Supernatural in a little bit, or the more comedic elements. But I really like the effects as he was transforming in this episode, as this ordinary guy transforms, and eventually he tries to go after his wife. We also get introduced to this other hunter in this episode who is looking for this guy for quite a while, and John also has a tie to hunting these types of things as well. And the actor who played the hunter Sam and Dean were working with in this episode, I remember him appearing on Being Human as Pete in season 3. He was also in a couple episodes of The Strain in season 2 as well, which is pretty cool. But he, of course, had a very different perspective on this guy, whereas Sam and Dean eventually started to see the struggle with it, how he couldn't really control it. And, this guy and the other hunter just, had tunnel vision on it. He just couldn't, accept that, there's this other side to it, really. But yeah, like I said, I like the effects as the guy is transforming and the sort of the conflict with that. I think that was a really good episode. And, okay, let's see, episode 5. Okay. Yeah, episode 5, Monster Movie. In a black and white world reminiscent of classic horror flicks, the brothers tangle with a vampire, a werewolf, and a mummy who are thinning crowds at a quaint Oktoberfest. And this is a really, really fun episode. It says something that as the stakes are starting to get so much higher this season, the story's just that much bigger in some really serious and major ways. Supernatural can still come back and have just funny episodes, that are a little bit lighter, but they're almost just as good in their own way, really. episodes like this, back in season 3 with the mystery spot, or certain episodes in season 1 or 2 that I talked about in my other reviews. Like, they're almost as important as those big serious episodes because they really help to keep the other side to the heart of the show. And I just really, I love Supernatural. Holy shit, it's an amazing show. I just have to do a whole video on how much I love Supernatural. But yeah, anyway, it's pretty crazy, We'll talk more. I'm gonna just get on with it. But yeah, of course, me being a major horror movie fan, this is especially a treat for me. And they actually had playing the guy going around in this episode. He's been in other shows as well. He's in the original season 1 and such. And so to see like him imitate this like Bela Lugosi style of Dracula was pretty funny, and just to see Dean knock Dracula on his ass was pretty fun. Then Dracula escape on a scooter or like a moped. And I was also pretty excited when I seen a little bit of the werewolf, because with werewolves on Supernatural, it's like one of the things I think could be a little bit better. I like the episode with Madison, back, of course, with her episode and, what Sam ended up having to do, back in the previous season. But, as far as werewolves themselves, I think they need more than, like, the scrunch nose and, like, the eyes and claws and stuff like that. I wish they'd do more of, like, a Wolfman style of, design to them, if they're really, like, hardcore about, all this other shit that's out there. Against all this other shit that's out there, I mean. And we almost seen that classic werewolf design. We seen part of its arms, which looked really cool. We never seen the werewolf full on, even though it wasn't really real. It still would have been cool, I think. But still, nonetheless, it was a really fun episode that you can appreciate if you've seen any of those movies. And then we had episode 6, Yellow Fever. Hell beckons again when Dean is stricken with a mysterious illness that frightens its sufferers to death. Sam and Dean scramble to find the cause of the disease in time to save Dean from sure death. Pretty good episode. It's hard to remember everything about every episode, especially with all the shit that went down at the end of the season. But this is a pretty good one as well. And I don't want to make this video too long either, because it's already almost 20 minutes in right now. Episode 7, It's the Great Pumpkin, Sam Winchester. Chomping candy, bobbing for apples, Halloween is such fun until gruesome deaths signify another seal is being broken. To stop it, Castiel and another angel plan a mass annihilation of the town, which is a really good episode, with Castiel and Yuri just wanting to obliterate, everyone in this town to sort of, clean up and move on. They've had to do it at other points throughout history, and it sort of brings up this conflict with Sam and Dean and how they feel about it. Really good episode. Episode 8, Wishful Thinking. Want to score a hot girlfriend? Win the lottery or have your favorite teddy bear come to life? Then plunk a coin in a small town's wishing well and stand back. One problem: the wishes come true with a twist. And this is a really fun episode as well. It's one of the lighter ones like I talked about before, but this is still a pretty fun one. We actually seen a teddy bear, as it got more and more depressed, it actually ended up trying to shoot itself, so it's kind of morbidly funny in a way, I guess. We've seen a fun dynamic with a main guy who wished himself like a hot wife on a girl he'd seen and he liked. And so he just wished her to be so in love with him and do whatever he wants and such. And he sort of felt for that guy, he sort of it was sort of relatable, he got everything he wanted. Then I don't know, but yeah, that was a pretty good episode. Episode 9, I Know What You Did Last Summer. What happened to Sam during the months Dean was dead? During the search for a girl named Anna Milton, who has a mysterious connection to angels, Sam reveals the astonishing events of the summer. And like I said, this sort of ties into how much time he spent with Ruby, and we found out later on that he was very much addicted to drinking demon blood. And in a way, Sam's journey throughout the season, it's interesting to see Sam get darker and darker as it goes along. It's very different sides to the character that we've seen in the early seasons, and you almost get like vampire vibes from it. I don't know if Sam's actually going to turn into a vampire at some point, but he's definitely like vampiric of sorts, with feeding on demon blood and sort of being addicted to it. So I really like that element of the season as they push that along. it definitely sort of played like a vampire type of thing. So I did like that. Although he hasn't actually turned into a vampire, I still got that feel for it, is because I love vampires so much when they're done right. And I just want to praise Jared Padalecki this season as well. Of course, both him and Jensen Ackles always do such a good job. Of course, Jensen Ackles was great this season. Both of the actors had such great performances. And, Jared Padalecki, he just did such a good job because, he had to show his darker side to Sam. And Sam's whole journey, he really developed in some really different ways. I really enjoyed the hell out of it. Episode 10, Heaven and Hell. I'll kill her. Gentle, the angels want Anna dead, so Sam and Dean go on the run with a frightened girl, determined to discover the secret that has set the furies of heaven on her. And Anna is essentially another angel, that was, sent down from heaven because, there are certain disagreements and such. And Anna sort of becomes a major character after that point, and in a way, sort of a love interest for Dean. They do sort of, get it on. But Anna, it was good. Again, the stakes getting higher than we ever imagined with that. Episode 11, Family Remains. Dad, mom, 2 kids, and a dog. An all-American family doesn't stand a ghost of a chance against the bloodthirsty force that turns their new home, sweet home, into a haunted house. Now, this was a pretty creepy episode. It wasn't actually anything supernatural, really, which was, pretty different to see. It's actually these 2 people who are actually, trapped there, and like a tragic backstory from this older guy who was murdered there, and what this guy actually did to him. And so they're living there. They essentially became feral, very driven on their pure survival instincts, feeding on what they can, hiding in the walls and the basements and such. And I really appreciate that it wasn't, it didn't really have any supernatural twist to it. It's just like a monster born from humans' treatment, really. So I really like that, and I think the main girl definitely looked pretty creepy. Episode 12, Chris Angel is a douchebag. Aging magician, the incredible Jay performs a dangerous table of death trick and emerges unscathed. Jay cheated the Grim Reaper, but one of his rivals didn't. He checked out while Jay was doing his act. And at first I was, it's kind of, this is going to be one of the lamer episodes, isn't it? Just because of magicians. Magicians doesn't sound as exciting as, like vampires or demons and angels or something like that, but this is actually a pretty good episode. There's some good acting in it, and I sort of liked how the friendship between certain characters in this episode were laid out, and how Dean and Sam ended up dealing with it. It was depressing, but at the same time it really spoke to like real life human feelings on when people are getting older and such, and I really liked it, actually. Now, of course, we had episode 13, After School Special. Fast Times at Truman High. Murder brings Sam and Dean back to one of their old high schools, where they investigate possible demonic possession and take a few trips down memory lane. Pretty good episode, This is definitely a fun one, because we've seen, of course, a flashback to one of the schools John had Sam and Dean stay at or attend while he was, going hunting and, looking into a case in a certain town. Of course, they had to move around a lot, as we know. We've seen Kansas Akala, or Kansas King, in this episode in a little bit of a role. And of course, she plays Caroline Forbes on The Vampire Diaries, so it's kind of funny to see her in here. She kind of acted like Caroline at the beginning of TVD, which is pretty funny. And then we had, but that episode also involved, actually kind of a sad story with a kid. Sam sort of knew when he was going there, and Sam sort of had to deal with whether he could fight back against a certain bully or not. And this, you get this person who is treated sort of as a nerd. Supposedly he was the one taking revenge and doing all the murders and stuff. Then you find out about this main bully that we see in the flashbacks, and how he was treated at home and what he was doing to help his mother, and the sadness in his story too as well. I thought that was really well done. Okay, then episode 14, Sex and Violence. In a small town in Iowa, 3 loving husbands kill their wives. Turns out these guys believe in spreading their love around. Each is spreading plenty of the family income on strippers at a nearby nudie bar. And it's really these, I forget what they were called exactly, but these demons, essentially taking the form of strippers or like the woman these guys desire and sort of manipulating them into doing these things. It's a pretty good episode. Again, I just don't want to go too long on this video. It's almost half an hour now. That's what happens with Supernatural. I could talk about it all day. Episode 15, Death Takes a Holiday. Reapers take a break from work, and that means no one can die, but the escorts to the next world aren't off getting some R&R unless you call being held hostage by a demon restful and relaxing. So that became a bigger episode than I had expected. Of course, with the Reapers gone, sort of had a couple fun scenes of guys not being killed when they're being shot and stuff. And we also met this other demon this season called Alistair, who was played by I forget his name now. I can see his name, but I can't pronounce it. Just give me a second. Okay, Christopher Heyerdahl. He's been in shows like Hell on Wheels. He's currently in Van Helsing on Sci-Fi, which is a show I'm really enjoying right now if you watch my videos. And he played the majority of the time he was Alistair, once he was the main body Alistair had taken, and he was definitely creepy. He had this different sort of voice to him like that, and I think he was played pretty well, and I sort of get to meet him around this time. Episode 16, on the head of a pin. Can torture be God's work? After 7 angels are mysteriously murdered, Castiel and Yuri demand that Dean use the agony-inducing skills he learned in hell to extract information from Alistair. This is a really good episode, going into what Dean actually went through in hell. As we've heard about it throughout the season, but this is really where he showed what effect it had on him, truly. And, again, Jensen Ackles is great this season, too. I talked about Jared Padalecki, but Jensen Ackles is great, too. Dean's still probably my favorite character on the show. And what he went through in hell, we found out, that he, he was, tortured for, centuries, in that time, but only, a few months in Earth time, really. And, how Alistair sort of tormented him mentally, saying how he broke, where his father actually held out and never really, how Alistair could never really break John, but he was able to break Dean, and Dean gave in, and then actually went off and, killed some souls with Alistair, which is really dark to hear about. But you really feel for Dean in this, and it's really good to see him get a little bit of revenge as well, and the different tactics he used to torture Alistair. And then this episode also, Uriel actually flips, and we find out that he's actually involved with this, more, to say corrupted angels. I guess that makes sense in a way. We find out there are angels who actually want Lucifer to rise, who are sort of turned to the other side. We don't know what's going on with God or anything, but Uriel turns out to be one of them. And I think it's they end up having to kill Uriel, which is really good. Again, to see Castiel sort of flip on what he believed in for so long. My throat's starting to get pretty worn out, honestly. But yeah, really good episode. Episode 17, It's a Terrible Life. At Sandover Bridge, an Iron Incorporated Dean is Dean Smith. The button-down director of sales and marketing, Sam, is Sam Wesson. A cubicle-dwelling tech support guy. What the heck is going on? What is it? What the hell? This is a pretty different episode, because we didn't really get the explanation of what was going on at the beginning. We just sort of started off with these guys, with the boys not knowing each other. It was different to see them, and it turned out all to be really a test, or sort of an example from Zachariah, saying how they were meant for this. Even if they started off in very different places, they saw eventually had this feeling to deal with this type of stuff, which I think was pretty good to show that again. And of course, it was a good way to introduce Zachariah for the late part of the season. So, pretty good episode. Okay, in episode 18, The Monster at the End of this book. Familiar plot, familiar characters. Sam and Dean come across a series of graphic novels called Supernatural, featuring 2 demon hunting brothers named Sam and Dean. And this is a really funny episode. It was actually almost breaking the fourth wall in certain parts of it, because it was really clever the way they did this. They actually used certain ways Dean and Sam talk about fan mail or fan comments these books got, they're really like responding to the way fans feel about certain parts of the show. And I thought that was really clever the way they did it, because they talk about how there's like shippers who actually weirdly want Sam and Dean together in a romantic sort of way, and they just talk about how creeped out they were by that. Just how sort of like rabid the fan base can be and such. It was just pretty funny. I can't really do it justice, but it was really smart the way they did that, I think. And of course, it's just funny to see them like read about themselves, and it's really interesting how this guy actually knew like every detail about even Dean going to hell, and he turns out to actually be like a prophet, I think it's called, and he actually is able to like write. He's like a writer for the higher ups in heaven and such. So that was pretty interesting. It was bigger than we expected. Episode 19, Jump the Shark. Meet the Winchester Boys, Dean, Sam, and Adam. The Winchesters discover they have a younger half-brother whose mother vanishes just as a long dormant grave robber renews his ghoulish career. And this episode again surprised me, because we find out about this woman that John actually spent some time with, and it turns out that he actually is Sam and Dean's half-brother, and I really like that dynamic. I thought I was kind of questioning it at first, but it really started working as the episode went on. I liked the kid that played Adam. And sort of like how that brought up stories about John again and such. I thought that was actually pretty interesting to see the kid get used to it and sort of him get closer to Sam and Dean as the episode went. But then it turns out both Adam and his mother have been dead for a while, and both the ghouls had taken the images of them, and they were feasting and such like that. So it was unfortunate that Adam was already dead. I actually thought that was kind of sad and sort of a wrong choice in a way. I actually wanted Adam to be a supporting character on the show after that, sort of like Bobby or something, but it's unfortunate, but it still had a pretty cool twist with that, I guess. But I would have rather have Adam just still be alive. But we do know that he actually is Sam and Dean's half-brother, but he's dead, and that sort of makes it really sad from John's end as well. We found out that Adam actually spent quite a bit of time with John, and it seems like John tried to do better with raising him. He took him to baseball games and such when he could. So it was really interesting to hear that type of stuff come up again. But yeah, really good episode. Episode 20, The Rapture. And this is basically about, Castiel and the guy whose body he actually took, the story, what happened with that, this guy's background. His name is Jimmy. And then once we see him, someone frees him from Castiel's control. And so we get that whole dynamic, we find out about his story, and then eventually his wife is actually taken over, though. So that was all really good, and then we seen this guy make a sacrifice at the end for Castiel not to take over his little girl, but for him to sacrifice himself again, so Castiel takes him instead. And we found out why Castiel is away for so long, essentially because he was sort of rebelling too much against these higher-ups in heaven, whoever they are. And, he's sort of caring too much about the humans, not really following the word and the order directly. So they sort of probably punished him for it, and he had to walk more of a straight line again after this. But that sort of gets turned around again at the end of the season. But yeah, pretty good episode. Episode 21, when the levee breaks. Dean and Bobby have something frightening locked in Bobby's panic room. Sam contaminated by demon blood as the apocalypse draws nearer. And this was a pretty good episode. They tried to cleanse Sam and sort of get him to quit cold turkey, really. And of course we had to see Sam do a lot of psychological stuff like you would see Dean and different things like that. This is a very good episode, and they sort of questioned whether they needed Sam or not, whether it was actually right of them to have Sam stuck in there, or if they should just let him be what he is and sort of do what he can with what he is. So that was a pretty good episode. And then the finale, episode 22, Lucifer Rising. The brothers prepare to fight the forces of Apocalypse in different camps, while Sam and Ruby hunt down Lillith. Dean joins Castiel and Zachariah to take on Lucifer. Very good episode. For the majority of the episode, Dean was trapped in this room that Zachariah and Castiel were keeping him in. Of course, we see Castiel's not really agreeing with the way they're doing it, but he's trying to follow what they want word for word again. And they have Dean's favorite burgers in there and such. And it was unfortunate Dean never got to eat it. Even when he tried to, he got it smacking out of his hand basically, which was pretty funny. Well, this is a very good finale, and of course it has that twist with Lillith, or with Ruby. I told you about how she was essentially a big part of Lucifer's plan. To sort of manipulate Sam to free him and such, by killing Lilith. Everyone wanted to kill Lilith so badly this season, but it turns out she's the final seal. With her death, Lucifer rises. So I thought that was all really, really fucking well done. And I also want to mention the fight scene between Sam and Dean, within the last couple episodes as well, and just how different and sad it was to see the brothers at such opposing sides, and having all this anger towards each other is really well written with the dialogue, great acting from both Ackles and Padalecki. Of course, the dynamics even deeper than ever. I really loved it. And Lucifer does rise at the end of the season. Sam realizes he was wrong to follow Ruby all this time. I was all set up to get Lucifer out. Ruby is finally killed, supposedly by Dean with a knife, as Sam holds her. So it's good to see him on the same page again. But Lucifer definitely has risen. We see the light, and we see something coming out of it, or starting to anyway, something emerging, and that's where it cuts off. So it's a hell of a fucking cliffhanger. Biggest cliffhanger yet. I thought the end of season 3 was a cliffhanger, but this one is another one. But yeah, not so much that we don't know what's going to happen, because Lucifer is obviously out now. So I guess maybe season 3's end was more of a cliffhanger, with not knowing what's going to happen to Dean and such, but still a very, very pivotal point to leave it off at. So yeah, overall, I absolutely loved season 4, and I love Supernatural. It's one of the greatest shows I've ever seen already. Season 4 is probably my favorite so far. We had some really funny episodes in there, but also the story just got even bigger and more serious than ever. So it's even more of a credit to it than before. And season 5 should be amazing. I hear it's has some very series-ending feeling stuff in it. It's going to be interesting to see how they do that, how amazing things are with Lucifer. Can't wait to see Mark Pellegrino in the role. And I'm also eager to see season 6 and onward too, and to see how I feel about it. People say season 6 and onward are so bad, but even with the creator leaving after season 5, I don't know, I'm still happy. I'm still going to enjoy the show, and I can't wait to see more of it. But yeah, I'll be starting season 5 tonight, and of course I'll do a review once I eventually finish it in a couple weeks. So I look forward to that. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If there's anything about season 4 I forgot to mention, feel free to leave a comment below. I'd love to talk about more with you guys. I'm sure there's stuff I missed. Sorry I didn't go into as much as I wanted. So yeah, follow me on Facebook, Twitter, subscribe, and peace.